Oh, okay. Here, once again, am I. Um, so I was originally going to do more pork today, because I have more in the freezer. Um, but I have changed my mind. Sort of last minute changed my mind. Uh, Now, of course, I have lots of ingredients, but I'm just going to cook with what I've got today. I didn't pick up anything special for this because I didn't pre-plan anything at all. Um, Along the vein of, I constantly find cheap meat and then I figure out what to do with it. Along that vein, I found cheap tofu. Now it's organic tofu, and the discount only brought it down to be the same price as the non-organic stuff. So it's pretty much just tofu. Um, it's extra firm. It's in my sink right now between some plates, just squeezing to see if there's any extra water to come out of it. And last time I did tofu, I tried to do a crispy surface on them, and it didn't work out because I think because I did them in that steel pan. Um, so I'm going to do it the way I would normally do it when I was just trying to get crispy tofu, which is in a nonstick so they don't stick. But we have the advantage of tofu being a sponge for marinades. So I'm going to do a short, quick marinade on it to get some flavor in there as well. Which squeezing the last little bits of water out helps with that. Uh, get my starting sign up. I really need to just get an intro splash screen. I need to do a lot of stuff. I can't, oh, whatever. Anyways, a few of these things are going to take a minute. I'm going to try doing rice in a way that I've recently seen that I've been told is a Korean method. My apron is sagging on the side. And that involves some soaking. So I'm going to get that started so that I can get them ready. And then I also need to get the marinade in. And then while those two are both sitting, waiting to get started, I can think about what else I want to put in this because it's not literally just going to be tofu and rice. It's got to be something else in there. But I'm limited by what I have on hand. So, so let's start the thing. Oops, I forgot to adjust my. Hold on. Bear with me while I adjust the brightness on the stove. Okay. 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 Uh, Rice first because I can get that started while there's not many people here. Although it's Thursday, so maybe nobody will be here. Uh, I'm gonna go with my short grain sushi rice. This guy right here. We're just gonna make enough for one. So this way. Now, I'm not following the instructions on the packet for this time. So the method that I have been advised, because I don't want this to be overly sticky when it's done. That's not what we're going for. Despite using short grain rice. So I want the rice to be. I'm gonna need to rinse it. So we'll come over here and do that. Um, Rinse in cold water. The other side of the sink is full of tofu. But the short grain rice is often extra starchy. So this rinsing step is even more important if you don't want it to stick together into a big glob. Now, if you're making something like sushi, you want them to stick together to a pretty healthy degree because you're trying to make little rolls or little nigiri balls. But I want these to be all nice separate pieces when I'm done. So we're going with the rinse. Pour the water off. I've demonstrated this once before. I don't have the rig to get a camera over here, otherwise I'd show you it in the process. You could also see the tofu rig I have set up, which is two plates upside down with a can of tomatoes on top for weight. It's pretty basic. So I'm just going to rinse this a couple of times until the water is pretty clear. And then the extra step is that it's going to sit and soak before I put it on the heat. Uh, and I'm using my rice cooker, so it's not a huge revelation, but I would like these to be. These are actually rinsing quite well. The water is clearer than I think I've ever gotten it from a just basic sink rinse. Uh, I'll bring it over and you can see after this rinse, the water is hardly cloudy at all, so that's good. That's what I'm looking for this. Although the rice already seems a little stickier than normal rice. So bring this guy back over. Suppose I should have changed my camera angle, but here's our rice. And you can see, if you remember from other times I brought this over where you could barely make out the rice, this stuff is crystal clear. But I'm supposed to let this stand now and soak for around 30 minutes before I stick it in the heat. So that gives us plenty of time to dice up my tofu and devise some sort of marinade for it to soak in. Tofu is very, very much a sponge. Here's the can of tomatoes that I had sitting on top of it, just to squeeze a little bit extra water out. It's already a firm tofu, so it's already been well pressed, but it's packed in water, and there's a little puddle around it. So there was some extra in there that needed to be gotten rid of. But here's our block of tofu. Now I don't like the look of that crack, but that crack was there before I pressed it. I didn't do that just now. Now I've heard a lot of people complain to me about tofu, uh, in particular that it doesn't taste like meat, which I have to agree. But I quite like tofu for what it is. I don't treat it like I'm trying to have meat. I treat it like I'm having tofu. It's its own thing. Uh, and I think that's where people have gotten a dislike of it, is if they try to make a meat dish using tofu, it's not going to taste like the meat dish. It's going to taste like tofu. Uh, so you have to treat it differently, which is what I'm doing. Crispy tofu is one of my favorite preparations of it. It works best with a firm tofu like this because you can get nice, clean cuts, and it holds up to a bit of punishment before breaking down. So you can flip it around and cook it. I'm not going to stir fry this. I'm trying to get these to have really nice crispy edges, so they're going to be fried in a flat pan. But also, tofu is such a sponge for flavors that you can very effectively hit it with flavorful marinades, even without a lot of time. So, get my nice perfect slices all lined up. These slightly gnarly end pieces are going to cause a little bit of a hassle when I try to cook them because they're going to want to roll on this side. But they should work out still. Some of them are a little bit thinner or thicker than each other as well. That is just me being inconsistent. In fact, I probably should take these two, and take that round edge off. And it also will make them the right thickness to go with all the rest of them, so I can cook them all at the same time. And then I've got these two little snacking pieces, which you can just eat straight. Doesn't taste like much. It tastes like well, it tastes like tofu, but it tastes like very faintly beany, which makes sense. They're beans. Pretty good by itself. But let's see. I need a marinade, and I don't have anything specific in mind. I've got hot peppers. I've got a lime. I've got a tomato. We might end up with tomato in my rice bowl. Um, I'm going to get out a dish and start mixing things here. It's going to want some soy sauce. Definitely get some soy sauce in there to start. Soy sauce is a good starting point for a lot of marinades, and you want a good amount of it. Keep that handy as well, in case I get my volume weird and I need to add more of any of the major ingredients. Things that dissolve in soy sauce are also going to be good. I like molasses. I'm going to throw some molasses in this. Thing I like about molasses is it provides sweetness, but it also provides this sort of rich bitterness. Once upon a time, I bought a bottle of molasses and didn't know what to do with it and just had it for ages. And then eventually I just started, I'll just throw it in stuff. Turns out it's great in a lot of things I wasn't expecting. Some white sugar as well to round out the molasses, and it'll help us get our browned, crispy outsides on these guys once they're soaked in it. Rinse the sticky little sugar grains off my hand. There's just enough humidity in the air that you get a little bit of sticking on the sugar. We've already got a bunch of umami in this from the soy sauce. I'm just going to add a little bit of MSG to sort of goose that up. Do I want to put spicy elements in the marinade? Probably. Um, but what? Now, I'm not specifically avoiding meat products in this. So depending how this tastes, I may end up putting a dash or something in there. This is rice vinegar. So I'm adding quite a bit of. Our marinade is not going to be on there super long, so I'm not worried about it degrading the proteins in the tofu. If you put acids in the marinade, make sure you're not marinating something that is vulnerable to acids, and proteins break down with prolonged exposure to acids. You can actually use that. That's what ceviche is. It's acid cooked fish. So we've got pretty basic flavors going on here. Soy sauce, sugar, molasses, rice vinegar, some MSG. I'll give it a taste, see what I think it needs. Go until the sugars are nicely dissolved. It's sweet and sour and salty. That's what we've got. The S's, the S flavors. I think it needs. It's a lot of the umami is just taste directly like soy sauce right now, and I think I want. Oop! I had a little blip. Don't know what that was. Um, I think I want another flavor in there to complement that. Because the MSG doesn't bring any flavor; it just brings sort of an amplification of that umaminess. So we're gonna throw some garlic powder in there. I think I'm just gonna put some straight up cayenne pepper in there. Comes in this awkward shaker bottle. We'll bring those together in it. Some black pepper too. Now I have a plan to include sesame oil in another place, so I don't think I'm going to include sesame oil here in the marinade. And again, they're not going to be in there super long, so I want these flavors to be pretty punchy. I'm not going to water this down at all. Okay. Yeah. It's got a little bit of bite to it. It's got more. It's actually got quite a lot of black pepper flavor directly coming out of it now. I almost think it could stand to have a little bit more sugar in it. So let's give it another big pinch of sugar. Whisk that in, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and try marinating them. For which I'm going to use a plastic bag, my favorite way of marinating. Lets you get away with less volume. Which means I don't know why I lined up all my little squares, since they're going in a bag. Marinating in a bowl means that you have to fill all of the extra airspace around your marinade subjects with marinade. Doing it in a bag means that you can squeeze out all of that extra airspace instead, and you can get away with using less total marinade. What I didn't do, one last whisk just before I poured it in. I will solve that with a splash of soy sauce. I have it handy. Just to remobilize all these gritty ingredients and partially dissolved sugar. Get that all in there. Sealer almost all the way up. And then the way you do it, when you're just cooking for yourself is you get the little corner there, you suck it out. And the marinade climbs right up to the top. I got a tiny little airspace still in there. See on that side, tiny little airspace still in there, but the marinade sucks right up to the top of your ingredients. Depending how strong your lungs are, you might be able to pull even more out than that. And that's going to sit also just off the back there. Oops. While I think about what else I can put in this dish today. Let's see, I've been going 25 minutes, so I'm going to give the rice a little bit more soaking time before I get it on, which is great because I can. I saw a nice recipe for a rice seasoning. I think I'm going to try that actually. Get these extra marinade rinsed off of my board here. Get out my other board. We didn't probably super need a second board today because the tofu is not meat, it's not raw, and it doesn't have that problem. But the other board was wet, and I've got two boards anyway, specifically for meat items, so we may as well use it like that. This is a Serrano chili, and this is the reason I was going to not add a lot of heat to my marinade, because I knew I wanted to use this today. Because I've had these, and I actually had to throw a couple of them out because it's warm. It's warm now, and peppers don't just keep indefinitely unless you take care of them. And I wasn't taking care of them. I was still thinking about when it was cooler and I could just get away with having them in an open container, and all they would do is dry out. When it's warm and humid, they tend to go off before they can fully dry out unless you manually dehydrate them. So if you're keeping peppers at home, be aware of that. I've never managed to dry a large bell pepper. These serranos are about the largest pepper that I've been able to successfully dry without using a dehydrator. Anything larger than this just is too much mass, and it goes off before it can dry enough to the point where it can't go off anymore. I don't think my board is big enough to make this into a board sauce, so that was the job of the paring knife is actually done because I want these to be a very fine mince. So we're going to take these into little shreds. As neatly as I can. And then just kind of go over them when you need pieces that are smaller than you can reasonably do by just lining stuff up and cutting it with the knife, this lever action, where you hold both ends of the knife, one on the handle, one palm flat on top of the knife there, and you can lever off of the point to give you a really sort of quick, powerful cuts. And your hand on the point stabilizes it, so you can just kind of pass it through the pile of food. It does make the bits a little uneven, but it makes them also so small that it doesn't really matter that they're uneven. I'm definitely going to have to wash my hands today, because now I've got serrano juice all over my hand. So let's get this guy scooped up. Oh, there was a seed in there too. Just get rid of that. Now I am actually using the blade to scoop this time because I really want to get in underneath these bits. If you're doing this with the blade edge, be careful. You can dull your blade if you scrape it on things too much. This is probably more than I need for what I'm doing, so I might have extra. Another element that I know I'm going to use today in this is this lime. And we're going to use the whole thing. So we start by zesting our lime. The lime's a little old, so the skin has dried out a little bit. But that should not give us any trouble when it comes to doing a zest on it. The lime is another reason I didn't want to put a ton of acid into our marinade, even though I did put rice vinegar in, because I knew I was going to be using this lime for this sauce, or for this, this is the sauce, this is the rice seasoning. A little bit deep on that one, hitting into the pith. You want to avoid, when you're zesting a citrus, which is what I'm doing right now, the zest is the colored part on the outside of the citrus skin. White part underneath it, and in between it and the juicy interior, is the pith, and it is bitter. Uh, the zest, on the other hand, has a very strong flavor of whatever the citrus in question is, much stronger than the flesh on the inside. The essential flavors are contained within the oils of the fruit, not the juice. And the oils are more concentrated in the skin than they are in the juice. Oh, well, it's not too late. I just thought of something to add to my marinade, which, by the way, I don't think my seal is perfect because I've got some airspace forming in there. But that's fine because I need to squeeze it out anyways. I'm going to add some, if I have some, I hope I have some powdered ginger would be perfect in this. If I don't have any, then I'm just going to squeeze the air out. I've got some. That's that's something that should be in here. So I like fresh ginger, but for a marinade, I prefer powdered ginger. Oop, that was quite a bit. A little lump fell out. So this is going to be very gingery now. So let's swish it around to get that powdered ginger incorporated into the liquid part of the marinade. I suspect some of the air is coming from literally air pockets inside the tofu that are filling with the juice. Oops, bumping my mic. Perfect. Now, if you're doing that with a meat marinade, be careful not to suck up raw meat. But this is a tofu marinade, so even if I got some in my mouth, there's nothing in there that I'm concerned about. So we've got chili, quite a lot of lime zest. We need some herb component to this. I have some parsley here. We're not doing cilantro slash coriander. We are in a no cilantro household. But I do want some sort of herbaceous flavor in here. So I'm going to, similar to how I did the pepper, gentlemen, I need you to move. The gentleman, the whisk, the bowl. I think we're going to end up with more than I need total. But I'd say if you're following along at home, no one's ever following along at home, but if you're following along at home, I would do this whole sauce in a food processor. I don't have a food processor, so I can't. But if I had a food processor, that's where I would be doing this. Not just the parsley, the whole thing. I want really bitty bits off of this. Get this guy bunched up. For people who like cilantro, do this with cilantro. For people who don't like cilantro, do this the correct way, without cilantro. I'm actually not going to save the ends of those stems. Those were the bottom ends of the stems. The stems get tougher as you get toward the part where they were coming out of the ground. What's my time? Okay, it's time. This needs more mincing, but it's time to get the rice started if I want to have rice today. So I'm going to take a brief pause in this element, get out my rice cooker, take my soaked rice. I'm going to get rid of that water entirely. I conveniently used a nice even measure so I can put in an appropriate amount of water. Rice is already somewhat hydrated. The cooker does most of the work here, so I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup of water. for half a cup of rice, since I've been hydrating it leading up to this. And it actually needs its own little space in the corner here. And we are back to mincing up my parsley. So I'm adding 3 green things together. Then we're going to juice that lime into it. And then I'm going to add just enough oil to bring it together into hopefully a little bit of a sauce that can be a mix-in for the rice. I strongly feel at the moment that I am going to have way more than I need. So I will also see how well it keeps. The acid in the lime should, in theory, help this whole thing from getting all brown and oxidized. But I want these bits to be real small, so we're going to go over this until it's pretty consistently little small bits. I've never done a board sauce, but this would be the time. This would be the time and place to do a board sauce, because you'd mince up your herbs right here on the board. You'd zest the lime. You'd mince the pepper, mix them right into the pile of herbs, and then the juices and oils would just get poured right into the minced up pile. And you wouldn't have to dirty another dish. It would all just come together on the board. That works for like a chimichurri, that sort of consistency. I'm not doing that because I'm a coward. Maybe someday. Maybe when I've got a bigger board that has a dribble tray around the outside. And of course, it leaves a nice big green stain on your board because you've minced up those herbs and all the chlorophyll has come out. Okay. Let's get this guy split in half and juiced. Like I mentioned earlier, I've had this lime for a little while, so it's a little old. So we'll see how much juice I get out of it. I expect I'm going to need any extra juice. Oh, it's still pretty juicy. It was just the skin that was drying out. Which actually I think may have made it easier to zest. The skin was a little bit less smooth because it was starting to dry and contract just a little bit. As my citrus reamer for reaming citruses, it is not anything else, despite what it appears to be. It is only for reaming citruses. The neighbors are having some kind of shouting, but it sounds joyful shouting. You probably can't hear them. Okay. Lime is in. Do my hands a courtesy and rinse the excess juice off before I move on to the next item. I'm going to see how much of a sauce this is. Yeah, It needs some oil to kind of pull it together. And we're using sesame oil because I like that flavor, especially in rice. Also, unfortunately, I wanted to use Tiny Whisk here because he needs to get used. He has a burning desire to be used. But I think this is an inappropriate application. The mix here is getting caught inside the wires too much. I think just a normal spoon is actually going to be the thing here, which is fine because I also need a taster. So let's give it a taste. Now it should be extra punchy. It's extra punchy. It's sour and herby. A little bit of sesame oil definitely comes through. Honestly, I may have just missed a piece of pepper, but it's not as hot as I thought it was going to be with all that serrano in there. It needs some salt. There's no salt in it. A little bit of spice on the back end. I think the acid does a lot of work to sort of even out the spice. So that's good. And yeah, this is too much for the amount of rice I'm making. So, yeah, that pinch of salt was just what it needed. Might add just a little bit more. Okay, okay. So now the question comes because I'm going to take these guys out and marinate out of the marinade and fry them when we get that far. The rice is cooking. Now is my time in the interim to think about what else I might want to throw at this. I unfortunately don't actually have a ton of veggies right now. I've got, actually, let's see how this has held up. So that is a chunk of a daikon that I originally used as a grated element. I made a pickle out of it. And I never ended up grating the rest of it, but it hasn't gone off. It's dried out a little bit on the surface, but it's still like firm, dry to the touch as opposed to any sort of ick on it. So I think it's going in this because I need to use it up. I've got some salad greens, so I could end up putting some leafy greens in here. I've also got cabbage and onion. If I did onion, I would want to probably saute it unless I did green onion. Let's pop over to the. Want to pop over to the stove? Doing a think. Think, think, think. In the immortal words of Winnie the Pooh. If I can find the smallest carrot in my carrots. I've got cabbage. Ooh. Snow peas. Okay. Okay. Green onion. My green onions are evidently trying to escape. They're both shooting off a new runner angle there that's headed for the headed up. They were laying in there like so, and this guy is pointed up. I guess someone told them it was spring. Hi, Felix. I've got a few things on the go right now, and I was just thinking about what I was just doing a think of what else I can throw into this, and I think we're going to. I should use a new knife. I should clean this board off as well. I'm going to shred this. I ended up not cleaning the board off. Not shred. Thinly cut the carrot. You missed Tiny Whisk. He tried his hardest on this stuff, but it's just a little bit too chunky, and I need to end up switching to a spoon. He's over here now. He's actually just off the bottom of the screen there. So I'm really bad at doing a julienne. So I selected my tiniest, skinniest carrot, and I'm just doing a split it in half and doing a slice on the bias. So these are very irregular pieces. And I'm going to saute them a little bit because I don't want raw carrot in this. I'm not in the mood for raw carrot. Since I'm sauteing these a little bit, I think I will do the same to the what are these things called? Snow peas. Snow peas do not need very much time, so the carrot is going to go first. Let's get out a pan. I'm going to get out what seems like much too large of a pan. This pan. We're going to go with our neutral oil because I don't want the olive oil flavor in there for this. I've seen larger too, but considering I'm putting that much carrot in it, it's a little bit too big of a pan. And it's because I want to use the same pan to crisp up the tofu later, and they need to all sit flat. So we're starting this one because I want the pan to be hot when I put them in there, and the best way to do that is to cook something else in it so that it's already heated up before I get to that point. So while those guys are heating up, I'm going to grab out a handful of these snow peas. Snow peas don't shrink up very much. And my bowl is already probably going to be a little bit full, so I'm just going to take some. And roughly chunk them on an angle, because when you cut things on an angle, it looks nicer. We'll just set them to the side because they're not going to need to be on that heat for very long at all. Get going on this green onion, which likewise we will cut. You can feel this knife is going a little bit dull. You want to test if your knife is starting to go a little bit dull. Cut an onion. If it pushes the layers apart, or in the case of the top, green onion tops, leaves the edges connected a little bit, your knife is starting to go dull. You won't notice it on things that are easy to cut, but onions are the thing that really reveals if your knife is in need of some care. This knife is in need of some care right now. Green onions also do not need very much time, so they will wait over here. A decent amount of the time, I just put green onions on raw as well. We're already getting our raw herby flavor from our green sauce. So I'll probably just put them in for just a flash. Anyway, this is honestly, aside from doing a fiddly thing with a rice seasoning, this is something that I would just cook on my own without anyone watching. This is the kind of thing I would make. I'd probably be done by now because I would have skipped the whole rice seasoning part. And I wouldn't be chit-chatting, so I wouldn't keep distracting myself. I feel like Thursday has not been such a nice day for this. But now that I've got sort of life in flux going on with potential jobs coming up, I don't really want to move the schedule around a lot. Ideally, I'd like to redo my schedule so that it fits around whatever my work schedule ends up being. I'm going to pull up my knob of daikon here. I think this is just going to be straight up raw inclusion. It's a little bit dried out on that edge, so I'm going to take that edge down. But otherwise, this held up really, really well. I'm always amazed. I'm continually amazed at how well daikon just keeps in the fridge without having to worry about it, without even thinking about it. Even this one that I peeled has just been holding up perfectly fine. The tone of the sizzling on the stove just changed, so I'm going to have to go over there and look at it. Yeah, I think the okay. Those guys take my green onion, chuck it in there, just kind of push it around to get it started. And then immediately get out a bowl. And get it out of there. I wanted to cook the carrots and the beans. The green onion just needed to be slightly warmed over. Back on the heat, back on the oil. We're going to switch over to the main event, which is the tofu. It's going to need a good amount more oil for this. I need a good coating across the bottom. And we're going to see how many I can fit. Here they are. They have an immediate sizzle, which is what I was looking for. The hope here is that I could fit all of them, but there were quite a few, so I won't be surprised if I get to the end and there's just not quite enough room to squeeze them all in. Yeah, that was easy. Easy peasy, that's all of them. They fit almost exactly. Crisped up tofu is my favorite home preparation of it, and the one I do most commonly. I tried to do this once before on the show here, but I did it in a steel pan. And they stuck quite badly. This is a large, flat-bottomed nonstick. They need a few minutes to crisp up on each side, though, so I've got plenty of time to come back over here. You can keep an eye on them for me. Finish cutting up this here daikon, which is going to add a fresh crunch and a little bit of peppery radish flavor to our dish, our unnamed dish. So far, there's no fish or meat or anything in this. I was just thinking through if I grabbed anything that would have compromised that. I think not. Unless there's an additive in one of these liquid sauces that I've used. Um, so I think we're on track to making a vegan dish here, which I do incidentally make sometimes. Um, I rarely set out to make vegan food, but it just happens sometimes where you just don't add any meat. For the show specifically, I cook a lot of meat because I end up finding something in the discount bin and I have an idea and I want to do the idea. And today I deliberately wanted to do tofu and avoided that. But I wasn't deliberately avoiding any meat items. Like but yeah, I guess the flavors just don't need it today. Um yeah, tidy up a little bit. First side of the tofu is not yet crisp. They will also shrink as they cook because they've got a good amount of moisture in them. It was a well pressed tofu, cut very very neatly. Even near the cracked part, it held together perfectly. The crack was just cosmetic. Um, but then I soaked it in marinade, so there's a good amount of liquid that needs to come out of them. I probably could bring the temperature up to encourage that first side to go crispy. So we're gonna do that. Um, so we've got a lightly sautéed mixed veg, a thickly julienned daikon, this stuff, peppery lime herb mishmash, and the marinated fried tofu. Does this call for anything else? Do you think? Maybe a brown sauce on the top? Hmm. Okay, let's see what you look like underneath now. That's the one I keep flipping, so let's try the next one. That's looking more like what I want to see. Yeah, okay. Oop, beep, 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 beep. That's the sound of the rice being done. Oh yeah. I guess that one was the wrong one to be testing on because it's browning up noticeably slower than a lot of these other ones. Oh, eh. Some of them are still trying to stick a little bit. But we're getting a gorgeous color. There was a sugar in the marinade, so some of this color is coming from the sugar. Oh, some of these have gone over for sure. Okay. I wasn't watching it. I was getting distracted by that one, and that one was one of the least cooked ones. So these have gone a tad dark. Wow, these have gone a tad dark. Why is this side less? Huh. Uh, Mapo tofu. I've made mapo tofu. Well, I've made an approximation of mapo tofu. Um, actually made it recently. Mapo tofu is it's got quite a lot of hot chili peppers in it, like hot bird's eye chili, and quite a lot of Szechuan chili pepper, or the not chili pepper, Szechuan pepper, the little grains, and it's about a balance between those two. I'm actually going to add a little bit of oil. I think my tofu is soaking up some of my oil. I'd have to look it up. I know that the secret, and I didn't know this was in there until I read a recipe and then made it myself, is that there's actually quite a bit of pork in it. Okay, well, I'm going to try to do edges on these guys too to get them crisped all the way around. And to give me a chance to look at the sides while I'm cooking them so they hopefully don't all go as quite as crispy as that side did. But mapo tofu isn't just a sauce for tofu. It's a whole like it's a dish. It's constructed up to the tofu. Uh, but you should give it a go. Uh, I didn't find it super hard to make. You just need a good amount of peppers for it. Mapo. That calls for silken tofu. This is extra firm tofu because I wanted to do this with it. Um, yeah, we're getting nice browning on all sides for these guys. A little bit of blackening on one side, but I'm gonna I'm gonna just call that richly colored. And I'm pretty confident that the blackening on that side, well, all the blackening is coming from the fact that there's sugar in my marinade. But this is what I wanted to see. I wanted nice, dark, but not black, brown exteriors on these tofus. This is how you treat a tofu. You don't pretend it's a piece of meat. You treat it like what it is. A piece of meat would never behave like this. You could never stand them up on their edges and just let them all stand. They'd never be firm enough until they were way overcooked. These are pretty much done at this point. I can't imagine them taking any more time. So I'm going to turn the heat completely off and get a plate. You know, I could just use this plate. If I wipe the little bit of liquid off of it, the plate that I was using to press the tofu in the first place, I don't have to dirty another plate. All it's got is tofu packing water on it. Uh, I learned about Mapo tofu from the anime Food Wars. because it was a major plot element in one of the story arcs. I was like, oh, that sounds good. And then later, it was only later that I learned that it is actually a pork and tofu dish. So this is a little bit blackened, crispy fried tofu. While we were making that, my rice beeped, so I think we're actually at the assembly stage, which is good because I'm pretty hungry. But I do want to take one of these guys and just cut it open. Take one of the extra black ones and cut it open. I want to see how far in the marinade got. It was only marinating for 45 minutes at tops. It's resisting my knife with its crispy exterior. Beautiful. Thin crust, hot right to the middle. Take a bite. Mm. Well, that one was particularly black, so a little bit of char flavor on it. But the crispy exterior gives you a good, firm chew and a crunch to it. And the inside is still like jiggly, almost jello-y. My favorite preparation of tofu. It's hot. This is going to need some kind of sauce on top. So while these are resting for a moment, I'm going to grab another bowl and I'm going to construct a quick sauce to dribble over the top. And I've got an idea. While we were talking, I developed an idea. Gochujang. My gochujang is always kind of dried out. Tiny whisk may be called in for this. Because I think a spoon is not going to be cutting it. A splash of vinegar. Because I need a liquid in there to help break up my dried up gochujang. And yes, whisk is definitely called for here because the spoon is not even. The spoon just can't even. I really need to use gochujang faster before it dries out like this. Because it would be easier to use if it wasn't this this quite so pasty. But it has come together to a nice paste. Give it a taste. I know it's going to be hot. Rich, savory. The rice vinegar actually I can't even taste it all, so I think that was just the right choice. It's complementary. That's salt. I don't want salt. I want the other one. Pinch of sugar. What I'm roughly constructing here is a bibimbap sauce. So I'm just going to look up bibimbap sauce, which I know is kind of freeform. Oh, you know what would go in this? I know what goes in this. Banana ketchup. Air horns. um, well, actually, that's one of the things I should be setting up. I never set up Firebot, uh, but like interactive sound effects with the audience, that's the kind of thing you can do with Firebot. Hey, welcome in. We're actually pretty near the end right now, but you're welcome in anytime. Look, crispy fried tofu. Ooh, that's tasty. That is a tasty sauce. Oh, well, I'm not sure. Twitch sometimes drops the ball on things. I didn't do anything different today, so it's probably on their end. So I guess I'm kind of making a bibimbap in general. It's just that I'm making it with whatever I've got on hand, which, if I recall, is what you're supposed to make bibimbap with anyway. So I guess retroactively, I'm calling this bibimbap. I could even change the name. Bibimbap. Now this stuff, take a scoop, put it in there. Mix it into the rice. The oil in it will help the rice not be quite so stuck together, because this was a short grain rice, so it's a little bit stickier. And we're giving it that sort of bright herby lime flavor. If there was cilantro in this, I would call this cilantro lime rice, but this is parsley lime rice. And if I wasn't using the rice cooker, I would have done this mixing right in the pot where I was making the rice, as opposed to here in the serving bowl. I think it would make it less of a mess, but I don't want to get that stuff in my rice cooker. So, yeah. So we'll take my lightly sauteed veggies. They're going to make up the a good bulk of that side. The nicest of these, some of them did go a tad over, put the over sides maybe down a bit so they aren't quite as obvious. Now that they're cool enough to just pick up, these are such good snacks. Just pick them up and munch on them. Such good snacks. I love this tofu this way. Big old pile of daikon on the side here for that fresh vegetal crunch. I've got enough of these tofus to construct a gorgeous plate with, and enough to snack on my side time. Mm. Like I've been saying all along, absolutely my favorite home preparation of tofu. There are some really fancy tofus that I've had out like a restaurant, but that's enough. The little bit blacker ones are over here. They got away from me because of the sugar in the marinade for sure. And our pretty thick, honestly. I think if my gochujang was less dry, this would have come out into a drizzleable sauce, but it didn't do that. It was a little bit too thickened up. So we're going to grab the small spatula and put all of the remainder right in the center. Not the most artful drizzle, but a sprinkling of toasted sesame seeds definitely will cover up a little of that. And do I still have a furikake in here? I do. I'm going to add a furikake to the veggie side, which also has sesame seeds in it, so I should have done that first, but extra seedy, I guess. And there you go. I guess I'm retroactively calling this vegan bibimbap. Fury cakes. Let's see if we can get a bite that's got all the parts in it. Oh, I should take a photo before I dig in. Almost forgot to take my glamour shot. Where did I put my glamour camera? There you are. So yeah, a little bit of a shorter idea today. Using up things I've got instead of picking a bunch of fresh ingredients. Pretty easy to make stuff come out damn delicious with just a little bit of care. That should be enough photos. Okay, coming back. Crossing. We're back. Over here, let's give it a taste. I want to make sure to get sort of all the parts in my taste, although a dish like this is intentionally hard to get all the parts in a single bite. Every bite is slightly different. which is some of the charm. But I'm going to try to get a little bit of everything in the first bite, just to give it a go. Ugh. Hmm. Interesting. So it's got a bunch of strong flavors in it. The gochujang, the chili and lime in the rice, the herbs in the rice, the marinade on the tofu, but they all kind of pull in slightly different directions. So it's honestly it's pretty well balanced. I like the crunch of the daikon and the very lightly cooked snow peas. They go well with the sort of exterior crisp and soft, pillowy interior of the tofu chunks. I wish I could share a bowl with you. Push it through the camera. Uh, I feel like this kind of preparation is really hard to go wrong with, as long as you have some idea of where your flavors are. Oh man, wow! I just noticed I dropped 41 frames today. Sorry to derail, but I haven't dropped any frames in ages. I'm surprised, but yeah, I wholeheartedly endorse making this. Is what good? 41 frames is it's very very low uh for stream. I'm sure no one even noticed that I was dropping frames. But typically I drop 0 frames, which is 0. So I was just surprised that I dropped any. Um, when I drop frames, you would see it as the stream freezing for a moment and then catching up. So it's not good to drop frames, but it's so few that I don't think it even is an impact. Early on, before I had this quite figured out, I was dropping thousands of frames in some of those early shows. Uh, but yeah, this was pretty simple. It took me longer than it would have if I wasn't chit chatting, but it was still on the quicker side. If I was just making this straight up for myself without talking about it, I probably would have skipped the rice seasoning, this stuff. Um, and I don't know, probably wouldn't have taken me much at all. So I'm going. Oh, well, you're out. I was just about to wrap up as well, since this is the finished dish, and I'm eating it now. So let's go drop off at somebody else. There's a bazillion people on right now. We've rated LaFay before. I was watching So Everdream earlier. I don't think I've ever rated him. There's also Kristen playing Card Shark. And Barry playing Card Shark. Must be a popular new game. I'm going to go raid So Everdream. You may call him Billy. I always call him Billy. I don't know where that comes from. He's playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, like the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. So that's fun. I have less cleanup than normal because this was a pretty easy build, and I've got extra snacking tofu as well. So I'm going to have a nice chill evening with some snacking tofu on top of my vegan bibimbap we ended up making. So I'll hopefully be getting a bunch of news about my upcoming life changes in the next few days. But I endeavor to be back on Tuesday as normal. So I will see you then. And I'm going to go ahead and skip our countdown and go right to Billy. So thanks for coming out. Glad to see you. Had a good dish. Just came out of nowhere. Bye. Oh, now it's counting down for itself. I'll wait. I'll let it do it itself since it wants to. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and raid.